Hey everybody, this is a lecture 1 video for Safety 481 Analysis and Design. This is week 4. I am going to be recycling a video from earlier in the year where I demonstrate how I analyze a couple of old case study reports. And that is meant to kind of show you the thought process I go through. And this is actually going to be just the first week we start doing this. We're going to do this over several weeks. I spent most of my day today re-looking at some older case studies and watching these videos, and I felt that we're going to take it slow. We're going to take it one step at a time. So we got to start somewhere. So I reviewed two case studies, which I've got copies of them down here. They're two machine guarding case study reports from a past capstone internship. Here's the rubric I used. I'm also going to review some other documents, some case studies for you. I'm not going to score them, but I'm going to talk about them and show them to you. Again, I'm trying to introduce you to them. Another project is to look at the Chemical Safety Board investigation. I mean, it's an in-depth post-accident, but it's a case study. And so really focusing on case studies this week. And that's something that is going to be part of our next 4 weeks. And you're going to be working on your own too. The problem solving for this week is you're going to you're going to score 2 fall protection case studies right here. Fall protection 1. I don't know why it says fall protection 3. I hope I did that right. But you're going to be doing these two using this rubric. You're not only going to score it, you're going to comment, justify your scores and make recommendations on where they can improve it. So fully break down 2 of them. We've got the discussion board in which I want you to talk about your what you want to do for your case study. If you don't know, I've got an option for several of you. But I think a lot of you already had some ideas, and I'm going to kind of go over that too. So that's everything that's here this week. And then I've got a few YouTube videos as well that talk about case studies. I watched both of these, and I thought they were fairly simple. They're fairly short, and they're meant to help you. So let me bring up the agenda. Here it is. Remember that in your capstone internship, you have to do 2 case study reports. And I'm going to try to mimic that in this course. You're going to do 2 case study reports. It's a big part of your grade. And so this is where it all begins. So here are the reports we're going to be looking at. In the video, I refer to, and actually in the second video, I do refer to this document. It's the case study assignment that is given to the capstone students, because capstone is Safety 492. And then I'm going to show you a cutting tool study that I had done and wrote up a case study, an indoor air quality study that my students and I completed, a year ago. What some of you can do for your first case study topic in this course. And then what a student had done in the fall that one of you has already picked up the mantle to keep working on it. And that's really cool. Okay. I'll introduce the code phrase later. For your course binder, there's going to be a lot more note taking this week, summarizing what you're seeing, but I really want to focus on what you're learning about a case study, the elements of it, how to report it. And so this is going to be a lot longer than what you've had in the previous 3 weeks. And in order to provide you that, nothing is going to be submitted for the personal professional development other than keep tracking your goals, your progress towards them. Discussion board, you're talking about your case study topic ideas, which you would like to do. And then the real world problem solving is the scoring of the 2 case study reports I just shown you on the Canvas page. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started here. And I'm going to bring up this. So this is the 492 case study assignment. And I talk about this at the beginning of the second video. Again, I am recycling that from a past semester. I don't know when I did it. But I rebuilt this trying to give you guys a better idea of what it is. So here's what a case study is. For intended purpose of this course and your capstone, it is a teaching document in many ways. You're teaching the reader that there is an opportunity to improve something. Now, whether that's to improve, the design of something to reduce the risk of injury or hazard, or to reduce the possibility of waste, or reduce the possibility of failure, reduce downtime, improve morale. In safety, we tend to focus on preventing of injuries, and then there's a cost savings. It could be also to reduce the likelihood of a citation, an OSHA citation. That's another possible value. But it's all about defining the project itself and setting the objectives. What are you trying to do? So you're going to kind of give the basis for what you're recommending, what you're trying to teach, and then you're going to kind of lay out the current status of things. And that is meant to guide what the corrective measures, corrective solutions, what you're basically recommending, and showing the value of it. But it's all data driven, whether that data is observational or historical mining. There's a lot of different things you can do. It's a very wide field when it comes to case study work. But the idea is it's to teach somebody, whether it's your boss, whether it's their boss, whether it's the person who's going to be taking over for you, that it's establishing what is known and what is going to be tried and what is expected, and then it should be followed up upon and either iteratively improved or monitored. And maybe it's applied to a different area, a different department, different job, something like that. Okay. What's difficult is writing a clear and concise professional report. And years ago, I tried to get the department to agree with me that we should really focus on the value of the case studies that all the students do, particularly in the capstone internship, but maybe even in this course and other courses too, because we can use those artifacts to train future students. And that's what I'm trying to do. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of great ones, though when I was preparing for this lecture, I've got some really good ones now. And so I guess I have been lucky without really celebrating it, because I tend to focus on negative things. Where can I improve? But there are some things that are definitely working. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can to provide you multiple opportunities to learn from your predecessors. How does that sound? And okay, I want you to read through this document. Yeah, and so I'll close it out now. Good enough, right? So the case study assignment is to select a topic by which you can do an investigation. And I'm going to show you one right now. So one of the classmates sent me an email, and he has 3 options, and he's wondering, which of these he could do as a case study, possibly. And what I told him is I'd talk about it in next week's lecture. And so the first one, he's saying, assisting a pallet manufacturer in development of a comprehensive lockout-tagout program, including the integration of machine stickers with Spanish lockout-tagout instructions. This initiative aims to ensure that non-English speaking employees can easily understand and follow proper lockout-tagout procedures when performing maintenance or repairs. The goal is to enhance workplace safety by educating both English and Spanish-speaking employees, ultimately reducing risk of lockout-tagout injuries. That's great. So lockout-tagout is an OSHA standard. It's under general industry. Are you kidding me? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's 147, I believe, is lockout-tagout. And so therefore, whenever you have equipment that when it needs to be repaired, you have to be able to de-energize. And that is to identify the sources of energy, work with the maintenance and engineers to design a step-by-step process in which you can go through and close the proper valves, close the proper switches, put in blocking mechanisms, deactivate energy, or redirect it, isolate energy, isolate pressure, isolate, things like that. So that when you get in there, start working on it, doesn't accidentally release, or the machine doesn't accidentally reactivate. Okay. What I like about this is you can actually use numbers, pictures, and colors so that you don't have to be able to speak one language or the other. You just have to kind of follow what needs to be closed. Now, I do think that on and off should be both in Spanish and English. hot, cold, Spanish, English. You know, if you're using any sort of dials or regulators or something like that, yeah, it should be spoken both ways. But I think there should be lockout takeout forms that are both, they have both English and Spanish, so you're going through and checking the boxes as you go through each step. And then once you've completed that checklist, gone through, check, 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 sign off who completed it, know where the locks and tags are located, it is now a document to show that whoever did it followed the instructions. And having it both English and Spanish, I think, is a great thing. And also, now, yes, it would prevent workers from getting injured, but then there's also the OSHA citation. So there's sort of a duality in value here. So yeah, that would definitely be a great case study. Is today we don't have it. You know, the process is to put it in, and when we put it in, this is what it looks like. This is how it would work. This is what would save. Cool. Next, conducting noise testing and providing applicable safety recommendations at a packing corporation. Last year, the owner informed me of plans to introduce new equipment in a newly developed area, highlighting the potential need for noise testing to ensure employees are protected from noise-induced hearing loss. This is another good one. You'd want to do a pre-baseline to find out what the noise levels are, a post, and maybe even do a spectrum analysis on the new equipment to find out if maybe the higher noise is in the upper or lower octaves of the hearing range. What is the current hearing conservation program, and how would it be augmented? This again still has OSHA penalty prevention here as a value, and that if the hearing conservation program needs to be augmented with this new equipment, that what are the additional costs associated with that, with the training, the labeling, the PPE, the hearing testing they would have to go on if it isn't going on right now, or if this new equipment is the only thing that does tip the scales in which they have to start a hearing conservation program, what are the potential noise capturing, deadening, absorbing material so that they wouldn't have to actually have a program, that the noise levels stay below the 85 8-hour time-weighted average. Okay, so this is a good one, but it's a little bit more complex than the first one. The next one, develop a series of 5-minute toolbox talks for a cleaning company covering key subjects such as PPE, slip, trip, falls, back injury prevention, spill control, and emergency response procedures. The purpose of this is to increase employee safety awareness, which could potentially help mitigate losses over time. So this one is much more complex because you have to evaluate what is currently provided. If nothing's being provided, you've got multiple, if there is indeed, the first thing you have to do is you have to assess employee exposure to hazards. And based on that, those measures, you come up with the solution. If you can't completely remove it, then you come up with training, signage, documentation, things like that. And toolbox talks is just an element of that. So this one would be much more difficult. It would take much more time to really lay out the context and scope, because this is something that would need to be, done over a period of time and customized to based on what the JHAs or JSAs are. That's the job hazard, and that's job safety. So this one's a little bit more complex. This one seems very straightforward. This one would need a little bit of finessing, but would be a good one too. So for the student that proposed them, I think number 1 is the most viable and ready to consume. 2 would need just a little bit of work. 3, a lot of work. So that's my recommendation on that. Now, for the student who's taking over the in-town project, I've got a report from the student who was working on it last year. And this needs a little bit of work. This report here is not perfect. They do focus on so lacko takeaway is 147. I got that right off the top of my head. I'm not sure, you can't just pull numbers out of thin air. They do reference ANSI, which I think is great. So there's 2 things that I think need to be focused on. That is the prevention of OSHA penalties because the current program does not meet it, or you're assessing to make sure it doesn't. I believe the basis for this project is that they were the company, which owns different plants around the U.S., received an OSHA citation. And so now what they've done is all other sites are updating theirs so they don't get a repeat citation at another site because it was cited under the corporate. There should be a lot of background information. That's what the intro is for the new user, but it really jumps to the answers here. So yeah, this is only 8 pages. Case studies, they can be 20, sometimes 30 pages, depending on what you're working on, but definitely need to be much more in depth and provided so anybody could pick it up, read it, and go, okay, I understand why you did it and what you did, and this is what it looks like, and you accomplished your original objectives or goals, and I see the value to the company. So for the student who's going to be doing this, you and I can talk, and I can provide you all the resources that were generated last semester, and then we can begin to identify what's lacking and what you should be focusing on and developing based on what's already there. Sometimes that's difficult because you're already working within a construct of somebody else's work, but that's what a lot of case studies are, is you take what they had and you build from it. So I think that's a great demonstration. I'll be able to, put that in my class the next time I teach it, that student started this semester, a new student picked it up. This is how we bridged the gap, identified what was lacking, and then improved it. So that's really exciting to me. So that's, as far as topics, it can be almost anything. And I want to show you some other things. So when I was at Aprilaire, what I did is whenever they asked me to do something, I wrote a case study report, turned it into a case study. So first thing my boss wanted me to work on was that they had some laceration injuries, work comp claims. And they said, could you find safer blades for the work environment? And we didn't want to invest too much money, and so I tried to find a variety of cutting tools that were plastic. Now, that's not ideal in any way, but I want to know if the configuration of these devices would work out on the floor. And if any of these were favored, then we would get more solid metal or better designed equipment. It was more or less looking at the functionality of this. And so I kind of gave the background of everything. So the executive summary kind of lays out as far as what I did, what I found, and what I'd recommend. I provided some other reference materials here. So I'm justifying, that why it's so important we do something. Let's see, what do I have here? Based on workers' comp. Boy, what did I? Oh, is this the company data that I did? Based on claims at the Madison plant cuts. So I did. I actually added in my full loss run data analysis and showed where cut puncture scrape is here. This is before I found out that some of this stuff is not assigned properly, but irregardless, you can see that the average cost is about $11,000. I brought it down to here, so really justifying it. Talked about how I selected. So total cost for $200 is pretty much what the company had to spend for this study. That's chump change. That's almost nothing to try and discover a solution that could remediate what the company had experienced in cut puncture scrape over this 5-year period, which was just under $200,000. Okay? So easily justified for the study. Went out there, I had workers try it out in different areas, said where I placed them, and then I had the workers actually rate whether the new configuration would work. What we found is that, it was really difficult for them to use anything other than what they were used to. And I probably should have spent more time prepping them to really give it the old, honest college try. But then I also looked into the gloves as well, because if you can't change out the cutting tool, you have to provide the protection for it. And so I was looking to see what we currently had and were using. And so what we found is that it would probably be better to go with a better glove, because a lot of our lacerations were not due to the cutting tools themselves. They were smashing the plastic, so they never really found a good design, and it'd be very difficult to replace the current cutting tools. And it's the current cutting tools. There was one actual laceration, and it was a freak accident. It wasn't something. So we're going to post, I think I recommend, posting reminders. We should do some training on the use of the current blades. Maybe we could try out some new stuff, but really what it came down to is we needed better gloves and arm guards. And then I kind of just gave a breakdown. This is what I use as the data collection. So that was a case study I had done. We learned from it, and I know that the person who replaced me was using it as a basis for maybe spending a little bit more money on the sample cutting tools, to see, and basically learning from what my study didn't find. That's good. That's what it should be. You're supposed to be learning from it. All right. Next case study. What's this one? Oh, yes. So if you guys are looking for a topic, I have one that we started last semester, and it kind of crashed. We didn't really complete it the way I'd wanted to. We started too late in the semester. But this was the resulting table of the little bit of work we did. So here's what it is. The Health and Safety Institute, or HSI, they own a bunch of different types of training and information, education, equipment and consulting companies. And they came to me and they said, hey, could you help us out? We recently put together this program which allowed their members to almost take like a self-interview, self-assessment, as far as what type of training they may need for their workers based on what they do. And a lot of the clients came back and said, well, what about the programs that we have to write? And so they asked, hey, would you and your students like to essentially comb through, quote unquote, comb through the OSHA standards to find out where documentation is required. And so right here, they just kind of gave some examples. Well, of course, knowing me, I basically ran with it. And let's see, what did I do last? What did I do? I did, not G. I did H, I think. Yeah, I did H. And so I found, what I did is I came down to a bunch of words that we were searching for. So assess, audit, observe, well, actually not observe, just the cutoff there. All these, and then the website itself, when you search for something, tells you how many hits there are. And then I went through and read them and then captured the actual language of the paragraph in which it was located, and then copy and pasted the language of what was required. So markings, sometimes it's programs. If you test something, you have to have documentation for it, written instructions. All these things were identified. And then in addition to that, we also searched for 4 different sources which that you could reference. And I've got the main things here. And then there's also a page where you can look up the total citations for that, total inspections, total penalties, and then the average citation amount for those things. So this is very, non-standardized at this point. But if anybody here needs a topic, I would really like to go into the next iteration of this study. And that's what, I'll share an updated Excel sheet with you and demonstrate how to do it. But just to kind of show you, what we're trying to do is, we're creating a database essentially that HSI's designers and programmers could turn into a self-assessment or an interview process by which a member would type in, they'd be asked, do you do this type of work? Or what type of work do you do? And then it would guide them to secondary, tertiary, 4th level questions. And depending on what their answers are, then the data that we're mining and categorizing or documenting would then guide them. And so it's all about, one, preventing OSHA citations and penalties, but more importantly, two, a written program that allows them to really improve things. And although we're not getting into the point where we're documenting what type of injuries or accidents we would prevent, we're really keeping it at more of the compliance level, sort of a simplistic level, because OSHA compliance is the minimum. And so we have a good report here, decent report from which we can begin our our case study, and everybody can do their own because you'll all be assigned a different subpart, and then we'll kind of combine them all together, or I will later on. So that's an option for you. So if you don't have access to any work environment, you don't know what to do, I'll take multiple people onto this project, assign you like 2-3 subparts. I'll train you how to do the work. I'll show you this report as the fundamental. We'll talk about what it's lacking or how it needs to be redesigned, and then you'll be off on your own to complete it. Okay? Cool. All right, next. I think I only have one more. Yeah, one more. So the risk manager on campus had contacted me last spring. We did this last spring. I swear it was earlier than that, but I feel like we did this forever ago. But in one of our buildings here on campus, there was a person who was complaining of sickness, and they felt it might have been due to mold. And so the risk manager said, hey, maybe this is a project your students could work on, because otherwise we're going to have to hire it out, and tens of thousands of dollars later, we wouldn't know. So I said, sure, I'll take it on. And so my students and I, we performed a visual and did some indoor air quality measures and documentation, and researched a lot of things to find out, should air sampling be done or what's going on. In order to test for something, you have to be able to identify it. And so we were looking for actual visual signs of mold. There was water leakage. We knew that. We interviewed people on campus, like the building maintenance managers, things like that. We studied fungus and fungi and other conditions that we were measuring. Is it ideal for it? Is it there? What would cause the symptoms? We had an interview with the worker and their coworkers to find out what they were experiencing. And it really came out that, you need to be able to prevent the roof from leaking, number one. But we did not feel that there was enough evidence to support air monitoring for mold, because we couldn't find it. We climbed into the ceiling and looked everywhere, and that they really just need to, correct the water leakage. So here's the whole table of contents. We just went over the executive summary, and then it's a very detailed report on the background, our methods, our results. I think we did a pretty good job. It's very thorough. And then I submitted this to the campus risk manager. And that was the last I've heard of it. And to the manager in the office. Let them know that the worker who is experiencing symptoms, we do not believe it's due to indoor air quality issues. And therefore, they need to continue to see their doctor and maybe other specialists to try to get to the bottom of what could possibly be causing those symptoms. I've done indoor air quality things before, and I know that people have real symptoms. The thing is, they're not always caused by the environment. You evaluate the environment, you test the environment to determine if it's a possible cause, and then you can work with the treating healthcare provider in order to give the person relief or resolution. But in this case, we just didn't have it, and we documented everything to show that. So I think that was a good job. So those were all of the things I'd like you guys to kind of look through. I went through them very briefly. I showed you how we can select a topic. It can be almost anything. And please reach out to me. I mean, you and I could just talk and we can figure something out. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through with you guys. We'll be doing more of this as we go through. So this may seem like you're drinking out of a fire hose or fire hydrant. I don't know. Why would you drink out of that? But I'm just saying that I'm throwing a lot at you. I just want you to begin consuming this stuff and understanding it. And together we'll build your skill set and we'll practice. The code phrase for this week is case studies are for learning. Okay? Case studies are for learning. I want you guys to think about that as you do this, that you're using it, it's a demonstration of what you can do, how you can solve problems, but really it's all about, it's learning, it's teaching. You're teaching somebody, but they're learning from it. So let's just go with case studies are for learning. That's the case, what do we call it? The code phrase. Case studies are for learning, and I'll come up with different, abstract views of that as we go through, because we'll be really focusing on the case study problem solving, which is sort of the analysis and design aspect of this course, the basis for this course. I feel like I'm babbling. I hope this was helpful for you all, but please go to the discussion board, talk about stuff, and reach out to me, and we can talk about whatever ideas you might have. All right, thank you.